Okay. Let's begin.
Okay.
What's your name?
My name is Pablo Valdez Acosta.
How old are you?
I am 39 years old.
Okay, and where are you from?
Well, right now I live in Vista, California. I lived in the U.S. for quite a bit now, but I'm originally born in Mexico. Ciudad Juarez, to be exact, border of El Paso in Texas.
Okay. Are you married? Do you have any kids?
Yes, I'm married. I've been together with my wife for 17 years, and we've been married for 4 of those years. We have 2 kids, a 17-year-old, a 9-year-old, and then we have 2 cats.
Okay. Can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, currently I serve as the executive director and founder of Tricity Pantry, also like an outreach pastor. But yeah, we're a mobile pantry, and we serve schools and locations where we're trying to help with the insecurity of food, the high cost of inflation. Food is it's an essential part of me showing love to others. That's how I grew up. We didn't have much. We didn't have a lot, but we always had food to share. So it's an important aspect of me and in this ministry. It's kind of odd how God put me. And yeah, we'll get to it in a little bit.
Okay. What church do you attend to?
Currently, me and my family attend Breakwater Community Church in Oceanside. That's where I've been elected as an elder. And my kids do ministry there. My wife attends. So yeah, we're members of Breakwater Community Church in Oceanside.
Okay. How was your childhood?
Oof. Yeah, I knew this. That's why I was starting to get nervous when we started this interview. But hey, if God knows, everybody should know, right? I guess. I know I could say that I had a bad childhood in my opinion. We always want the best and the greatest. I didn't have it that bad. Later on in life I found out that I was adopted, but it was rough. There was moments where it definitely felt like there was something odd going on. I had an overprotectively mother that sometimes, or stepmother, that was hard to negotiate with. I had a father that was an alcoholic, and there was never any domestic violence, but there was definitely a lot of arguments, a lot of family issues. I mean, a lot of the family that I grew up with were drinkers and partiers, and it was a difficult thing. I didn't lack anything. I did have all the toys and video games and stuff, but now reflecting back, I think the most important thing that I lacked was family unity, or being told I was loved. There's these memories that you get ingrained, right? I mean, of course, there was these moments of good things, like I went to Disneyland when I was a kid. I was in El Paso. I was getting the newest and greatest video games and stuff like that. But there was always a lack of love. I mean, the only person that truly invested in my life was my godfather, and unfortunately, he was an alcoholic, and he got taken out of my life too soon. He was the only one that would defend me. He was the only one that loved me. I mean, both my parents, or adopted parents, worked, and they overworked too much, so I was always being left in homes to be taken care of, where I endure physical abuse. I mean, I remember getting into fights with some of the people there. I remember times where all they gave me was, leftover, and the leftover was just disgusting. And then my aunt started taking care of me, and I once got into a fight with my cousin, and he damaged my ribs. And I remember going and talking to them and say, hey, this happened. They didn't believe it until I was sitting down, and I remember I couldn't breathe, and then everything blew up. But I remember also my cousin grabbed me from the neck and scratched my neck. I mean, they always hated me because that was my godfather's household. So he loved me a lot. And I found out later on, I think it was because he knew I was adopted. Someone needed to love me as their own son. So my cousins really hated that. It was they really hated it. I can tell they hated me with a passion. Yeah, it was not a good childhood. I mean, I remember sitting down once in a bar to like early hours in the morning while my stepdad was drinking, and I was hungry, and he didn't care. Like, he truly didn't care. Yeah, it was a difficult childhood in regards to, you know, I think the replacement of gifts and toys and stuff like that was to love me. And yeah, I mean, I was a difficult child too. I'm still a difficult person. But yeah, it was, like I said, it wasn't all bad, but there was these moments where I wish I wasn't there, like being in bars with all these people that I did not know, dealing with cousins that had intentions for me that I just didn't like. You know, I could go, like I would tell my kids, when I was a kid, I will walk miles, I would ride my bike so far. They didn't care. I could be gone the whole entire day and they didn't really care. I guess that's why I was the only now that I think about it. But yeah, you know, it was not that bad. I mean, could be worse, I guess.
How's your relationship with your parents now?
Oh, that's difficult. Based on my opinion, I don't think we have any. I think we tried. The dysfunction and yeah, it's a step in my life where I guess I'm still holding on to the hope that they'll change and become good parents, not just for me, but for my kids. And I don't see that. So there is no relationship. My stepmom, I haven't seen her in ages. I don't think she's ever met my daughter. She's never seen my son grow up. My stepdad, he tried on his own accord. We tried mending that relationship, but it and I think it was one-sided, and it was really hard to explain it to him that he was hurting me again, and I got blamed for it. So whether I'm right or wrong, I did it to protect my family. I don't want them to experience that because it makes me bitter. It causes issues as it is. There's already internal issues that I'm dealing with and having to deal with more. So I left it up to God. I said, all right, Lord, I think I'm at peace with it. I don't find myself lacking anything. I have, you know, God has been really graceful with replacing family. I have uncles, I have grandpas, I have, you know, all these brothers and sisters in different ages that have stepped in and become the father that I needed, that person that held me accountable, that person that loved me, that corrected me and helped me, you know, make sure that I was doing the right thing. So yeah.
How were your teenage years?
Whew. Man, that was a yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I tried it. I didn't get into the drug scene. I didn't get to the smoke scene. I mean, friends were doing it. I just never had a keen for it. I saw many of my family members, you know, like my godfather, cirrhosis, and I saw him die, and literally his body was decomposing day by day. So I never really focused on that. But I skated. I had friends. I went to parties. I went to dances, made a lot of wrong decisions, met a lot of wrong people, but I never got involved in gangs, but I knew all the gang members, they all knew me. That's one stage of my life. I don't regret it now, but if I could, I would change certain things, but I think that's when I most needed the love of family. I was confused because I didn't feel like I belonged in anywhere. Like, it was weird. I was a skater, and then I was into grunge, and then I was into rock, and I was into rap. I mean, I liked it all. I had fun. Like I said, I never really, you know, got into drugs or anything like that, but it was an interesting time. Life was a little bit different than now. I still love video games. I mean, I think that's one thing I can say. My teenage years were video games. I used to the arcades, the little quarters, playing video games. I always tell my wife that I used to make money playing video games. You know, now it's kind of hard, you know, but there was all these arcade machines popping out everywhere. I worked during my teenage years. Actually, I never told my parents I worked. I went and worked at a restaurant by my own. I went and got a job, and I was going to school and at that, and then I worked at a Wendy's for a little bit, and then I would just go to El Paso a lot and skate in El Paso. I never told them that I was going to El Paso. I mean, I was most of my time when they didn't know where I was pretty much in El Paso. So yeah, it was an interesting time. It was difficult. I wish I had some people that I have now around me, but I don't regret anything because thanks to all those decisions, you know, God put together an excellent family for me. So wanting to take those years is like wanting to take my family back. So I wouldn't do that.
When was your encounter with Jesus?
Oh, I think I had many, but there was one where I definitely threw my hands up. But people tried to pour into my life. People tried, and I ignored them. I had aunts talking to me about, I mean, I went to Catholic church, you know, I went to Mass. When I was in El Paso or here in Oceanside, people try to take me to church. My family they're not believers. I think they're more like into the esoteric, and I think it was some Scientology thing going on. So they weren't really religious, so they didn't put that in me, but I did have friends that invited me. I've gone to churches, and I think through the time that I knew my wife, I think we might have stepped in a couple of churches every once in a while when things got thick, you know, and when you didn't have the answer for things. I remember that. I remember a few times we went to church. I know my wife's uncle had a church. We went there, but I refuted it, man. I thought I had the world. The world was my oyster, as they say. I think that people, you know, I thought that I had all the answers. I could refute anything. But anyways, the encounter like that finally changed my life. We got to go through my testimony. So once I finished high school here in the U.S. in Vista High School. My senior year, I did that here. The cool thing is that because I was doing high school in Mexico, I had all these credits, so school was relatively easy for me. The first semester was just proving to them that I could speak English. But anyways, yeah, I finished high school, and then things just happened. I was being such an idiot, and my aunt decided, hey, you need to leave, and she kicked me out of the house, and I had nowhere to go, only a backpack full of stuff. So I ended up on the street, homeless, and we had no family around. I didn't have no one to rely on except a few friends that wouldn't stick their neck out for me. They wouldn't do anything for me. So I ended up taking on the life of crime. Again, I never did drugs or alcohol. Not that it's better or than, it's just some people get amazed that I did all that and I didn't have an addiction like that. But my addiction was trying to survive. I mean, it was tough. You know, when you're homeless, trying to get that next meal or at least a meal was rough. So I ended up going to jail for theft, a couple other things. I just don't want to get into too much of it. I still regret every minute of it. I know God's forgiven me, but still hard to recount those things because I'm not proud of them. So I went to jail. I did my time. I came out, and I remember they always tell you this: you come out of jail, they're like, "Hey, we'll see you soon." I said, "No, you'll never see me again." So I lived my life clear. I stayed clear of any tickets. I stayed clear of any cops. And I thought I did it right. And apparently not. I didn't pay for my crime properly. Fast forward 13 years, I already have a wife. I already have kids. And I have a business that's sort of successful. I'm not going to say successful. It was sort of successful. It was okay. Could have been better. But it was me. I was trying to handle it. But anyways, I had dinner. I had lunch with my wife that day. I think it was a Thursday. I don't know what day it was. It was just a horrible day. And then after she was gone, the marshals came for me and they said I had some warrants. And I tried fighting them, but there was no way that I could prove them wrong. They were there for a mission. Man, my world ended that day. I even told my wife, you can go if you like, that's fine. Because I had never told her this. I had never told her I had a background. I thought it was beyond me, past me, but everything's in the dark comes to light, right? That's what God says. So I went back to jail. That was a confusing time, man, because there was no paperwork. They didn't have clue what I had done, why I had done it. I mean, it was just a nightmare. But that's where God wanted me finally. I understand that now. And then we understood also something else. Something else came to light, that I had no paperwork, that I was actually here illegally. Illegally, kind of. So I had an immigration hold. Man, that was pretty rough. So that was my first encounter with God. I remember in jail I read 2 books because there's nothing else to do. You know, you either mess around there or get in trouble there, or you just sit down, put your head in a book, and I've always liked books. But I remember reading a book. I still have it actually. The Book of a Praying Husband, and it was just eye-opening. Needless to say, I didn't know it was God. I mean, it was funny. God was working on me slowly. He knew how to get to me. I read the first chapter, and there was a need to pray for your wife. I pick up the phone there in jail, and man, I remember I wasn't even scared. I mean, I guess crying in jail would be kind of scary because you're showing weakness, but I wasn't. I was ready to tell my wife how much I love her and how much I wanted to grow up and how much I was sorry for lying to her and for not telling her the truth, and that I wanted to become the man that her and the kids needed. But I also accepted the responsibility that if she wanted to leave, she had every right, and I would not fight her. I will figure it out how to provide. I will figure it out how to be a man outside the marriage. But she knew better, I guess. God knew better because she touched her heart and she gave me well, by that time, probably like 1,000 chance because I was a really idiot when we were together. But anyways, things happen. They moved me here, moved me there, and on one of those occasions, I saw this correctional officer, this black guy, really cool guy, comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, Pablo, you're made for better," and I just couldn't understand why he told me that. The whole life I knew I was destroying things. I know what he wanted me, and it was hard to hear that. And he said, "I'm gonna give you a Bible, and you need to read Ephesians," and you're not gonna tell someone else to do that, especially when they're rebellious. Of course not. So I said, yeah, sure, whatever. But after some persistence and insistence and consistency, I read it, and he pushed me to read it, and I finally read Ephesians 2:8 to 10. For we are his workmanship, created for good works beforehand. Man, that touched my heart. That was what I was waiting for to hear, that just because I was adopted doesn't mean I was unwanted. And that was a moment when I knew God loved me, and I knew that I could do so much good, that I could turn my life around just by listening to those words. But it was beyond reading them. It was more like he grabbed me, shook me, and he said, "Don't you get it?" Like that kind of response. Like he's been telling me this my entire life, and I kept ignoring him. And that time was so powerful. And when I finally he came back to check on me to see if I read it, I told him what I read, and he said, "You see, I told you." And he's like, "I'm gonna bring you a study Bible, and you're gonna study it." So I did. And then from that point on, I will go to Bible studies just, for 2 reasons: to get out of the jail cell, because I don't want to be inside. I didn't want to be involved with anybody. I didn't claim anything. I just said, I'm here to do my time. I don't want to deal with your politics, which is a rough thing to do, believe me. That's not an easy thing to do. It's a death declaration. You're signing your death will in there. It's just a bad place. But in one of those Bible studies, this old pastor came in, and he asked if anybody wanted an encounter with Jesus. And I said, I do. And he took us to this prayer meditation. And it was so beautiful. I've never experienced anybody doing that to me. It wasn't hypnotism, but it was like, close your eyes, I'm gonna guide you, imagine these things. And took us up to a mountain, and up from the top of the mountain, he said, look down, there's a fire, and there's the disciples, and there's Jesus, and Jesus is calling your name. And he didn't say my name, but I heard, like the pastor didn't say my name, but I heard Jesus say my name. And I remember, even though I was far, he extended his hand, and by the time I realized, I was already holding his hand. Like, it happened so quick. And then he asked, if you're ready, give your life to me. And I did. And I remember, man, I was crying out loud. I surrendered that part of my life, because it's still a work in progress, you know. But that was the day that I gave my life to Christ, and man, this weight just came down, this peace came down. I knew everything was going to be resolved. I knew there was a purpose in my life. I knew I wasn't going to be there forever, and I knew I wasn't going to be deported. I was confident. Even though I still quivered throughout the whole thing, I knew God had this perfect plan. And I remember saying, like, my prayer every night was like, release me to the hands of my wife and my kids, and I will do what you want me to do. I didn't even ask him what it was. I just kept repeating, release me into the loving hands of my wife, and I will do what you want me to do. And in one of those times, I heard you. And I just kept studying. My attitude started changing. I gave up cursing. I gave up soda, which to you may be something stupid, but I asked him, if I give up soda, it was weird. I said, if I give up soda, which I think it was a vice of me, I love soda. And I said, I'll show you that I'm serious. I'll give up soda. I would not drink a soda. And soda in jail is like, man, if you got money, you want to drink a soda. You're drinking this nasty water and some sort of Tang, Kool-Aid. But yeah, I gave up soda, which is still hilarious. I haven't drank the soda since then, a couple times by accident, but it wasn't intentional. But yeah, that was my encounter with Jesus. And then from there, I just promised my wife. I called her and I said, I promise this from point on, I'm gonna work on being a good husband. I'm gonna be working on being a good dad, and just I kept moving forward, and I kept promise her, and I just said, I have God with me. And I even told her, we need to go to church. We need to go to church. And man, I guess she was waiting for this for a long time. Once she told me, she was praying for me in the bathroom when I used to hurt her really bad. Not physically, by the way, but when I used to hurt her emotionally, she said she'll go in the bathroom and pray for me. So it works. It works. Wives, pray for your husbands. Husbands, pray for your wives. But yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy in there because it changed, and I didn't realize how much I was changing, because people will sit next to me and they will say, hey, don't talk like that, because he reads the Bible. Hey, don't say things like that, because he reads the Bible. I mean, it was hilarious sometimes, because I would be like, me? You're talking about me? Like, anyways, it was crazy. One thing I want to tell you is that it wasn't easy to trust God. I mean, it's easy, but for me, it was really hard to let go of control. So when we're sitting with the immigration judge, the attorney just said, hey, good luck. You got the worst judge ever. And I remember I said one more prayer, and I said, all right, Lord, if you're real, you're going to show up and you're going to let me out and back to the loving arms of my wife. And it happened. I mean, there's so much more to the story, but we can sit here for an hour and discuss it, but it happened. And then when I was coming out, I said, Lord, I need people to be in my life. I don't want to let go. And he blessed me with that favor. He blessed me with the favor of having friends and family, actually, that just embraced me and said, what took you so long? Not how could you, not why would you, but welcome home. What took you so long? They wanted to know how things happen. So that was my encounter with Jesus. It was intense, man. He grabbed me on. He shook me. I didn't listen, and he shook me hard, and it's good. It's good that he shook me, because I don't know where would I be. I don't think we would have been together. I think this would have probably ended on divorce. Would have been bad.
And where are you at right now with God?
Still fighting. I arm wrestle him every time. No, I don't. Yes, I do. Why am I lying? It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. There's things in my life that I'm still dealing with from the repercussions of my actions. Like, there's things in my head, there's depressions, there's just things that I haven't been healed of. But what God uses, like, honestly, from stealing to giving stuff away, like, when I tell people my testimony and they get amazed because they're like, I'm living scripture. Scripture says, for those who have stolen, let them work hard and give back twicefold. I mean, that's what drives me. Like, people ask me, what are you doing? I say, I'm repaying back my debt. I owe it to God. He doesn't want me to repay him. He wants me to repay mankind. So, but I struggle just like everybody else. I mean, I don't know if everybody else wants to admit it, but I struggle with faith. There's times where I quiver. But thankfully, he said, like my wife, she usually spiritually slaps me once in a while and puts me back in my place. I have friends that I rely on, accountability brothers. So in that area, I could say that I'm blessed and I'm okay with where God has me. Hard to understand some things, like paperwork-wise and legally-wise, like things haven't happened. But we're safe. At the end of the day, when I look at the spectrum of everything, we're good. So there's some struggles and victories, like getting the family to go to church and all these things. And I'm hard-headed and trying to get out of the way. It's hard, but God is working through me to change things. But I could say I've definitely done a 180-degree turn. I mean, I'm a different person thanks to him. Not anything that I've done, but thanks to him.
If you were to meet a young you right now, what would your advice be, and how would you like to be approached?
Oh man, that's good question at a good timing. I was just sharing with my wife about this cop to rescue this guy on a bridge trying to commit suicide. I've never had those thoughts, but I definitely had those thoughts of bad intentions, like to not wanting to be myself. If I met a young self, which I have, I told them they're loved, that their family loves them in their own way, of course. I tell them that they're meant for so much better. Like, it takes a quick decision. You're in a crossroad where you can choose, and these choices are going to shape the man you're going to become or the boy you're going to become. I wanted to be embraced badly for who I was. People wanted to change me. I don't want to change anybody. That's God's job. But I want to let them know they can change. They can make different choices. Meet them where they're at. Like, no one's perfect. I have so many flaws. I'm a sinful person. But man, when back to that cop, like, he embraced the man, and that's what he said. He didn't grab him, he didn't hug him, he said, I embraced them. That's what I would like to do. And if I met a younger self and I was able to go back in time, I will get on the floor, sit down with him, get on the level of that person, of myself, and say, man, you're loved. You're made for so much better. And there's a God out there that knows everything about you, and is so patient. Like, so patient. I mean, he waited for me for like 35 years. and once he open your heart, man, it's going to change. So that's what I would say, is I would want to be embraced where I'm at, how I'm at, understood for who I am, and just guided, like, just advice, meaningful advice, and consistency. I think that's one thing that we lack, is consistency, always being there. Even if we get rejected, just still be there. Maybe not the same way, maybe not the same attitude, but at least be present. That's what I would like, and that's what I would share with someone in my situation that's younger than me. It's like, hey, there's still time. There's always time. It's never too late.
Can you leave us with the verse that helps you, and why?
Yeah, I would say Ephesians 2:10. Actually, 2:8 through 2:10. I'm not going to misquote it, but it speaks of, for we are his workmanship, created for good works, I mean, think about that. Like, when I heard that, I guess because I'm adopted and I was surrendered. I mean, like I said, there's much more to my testimony, but finding out that I was surrendered, finding out that they didn't even have the time to sign my birth certificate, like it almost looks like it's made of, like I was part of a movie. But to find out that God intended me to be born, that I wasn't a mistake, that I'm wanted. I guess a lot of us that were adopted, we struggle with that, like trying to understand what do we do, but it wasn't us, it was their sinful nature, because they drove them to do that. I don't know what happened with them, what decision they made, that I wasn't good enough, but God says I'm good enough. So if a human says that I'm not good enough, but if a creator of everything in our world says I'm good enough, that supersedes everything, right? So that's why I love that verse. I mean, there's so many other ones, but that one it's because that's what brought me to Christ. That's what I needed to hear. So if you're watching this and you're adopted, or you're feeling unwanted or being thrown out, that you read that verse and you realize, even though mankind may not want to, He does. But yeah, that's what I would leave you with. That's about it.
Can you share about your ministry and how do people get involved? Like, do you have any links?
Yeah. So as I said before, our ministry is Tricity Pantry. We're a mobile pantry. We have connections with the Vista Unified District and the Oceanside Unified District. What that means is we set up mobile pantries at schools on a bi-weekly basis, where we serve the community, the students and families of the students, with free groceries, unrestricted access. We have a no requirement policy. Anybody that shows up to the table and needs the groceries, we're going to hand it to them. We usually even bring people to the tables to give them that, and we maintain a quality grocery style. We want to give them canned goods, dry goods, vegetables, fruits, all fresh, salads, sandwiches, frozen meat, bread, cookies. So we want to have a recipe that we try to stick to, where people can make meals with it. But yeah, it's a mobile pantry. You can find us on the internet at tricitypantry.org. You can find us on Facebook at Tricity Food Pantry, on Instagram at Tricity_Pantry. You can make donations through the website. There's a link there that says donate. You can also reach us out through Facebook and ask us for the links. And if you're local, you can always reach out to us. And if you want to become a volunteer, we're always seeking volunteers to help us out, either bag or distribute food, even talk to families. We try to feed at least 150 to 200 families weekly. We do 3 to 4 distributions, so we definitely need the support financially and in prayer. Right now, we set up 2 grants. They're going to make a difference, because with these relationships that we have and the no requirement policies, we're expanding, and while expanding, it requires more capacity. So we definitely need your intervention. God hears our prayers, so lift us up in prayer for a warehouse, for volunteers, more families to feed, more access to nutritious food, monthly donors, one-time donors. We're seeking a warehouse that's large enough to house all that stuff. And again, we give it all with no requirements, which stands us out from any other pantry. We don't ask them to listen to anything, to hear anything, to bring anything. We just want to give them back their dignity. They don't have to sit there and explain us their situation. We know their situation. I've been in that situation, so we don't need an explanation. But yeah, that's we'll put the links up on this video, and if you want to get involved, I'll put it there. You want to reach out to me and talk to me about it, I'll be more than happy.